Wow. It's quiet.
Yeah, I just told that it's like a church.
Yeah, like a church.
Everybody goes and sits down.
So I don't know if you wanna shut the door or leave it open.
No, leave it open in case anyone wants to come in. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost 6 o'clock. So I'm gonna get started.
Okay. Yep, it did.
All right. Well, it is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to bring this work session to a start. I'm Mary White. I am the chairperson of the Gorham Taxpayers Association. This is the vice chair, Adam White, my husband. And what we're here tonight to do is to explain what the subcommittees from the GTA were able to do and the findings and recommendations that they're making. And get input from the other members who are here. Those members who are not here will get the information by email, and they'll be able to give their comments online by email as well. And I understand not everybody can be at meetings, but this is when the meeting room was available, and this is when we were available. So thank you for those who are here. I'm going to start off with the school district subcommittee recommendations. I just got the annual school report, and it has on the warrant a total of 9 warrant articles. The ones that we were looking at most on the schools subcommittee were the operating budget and the teacher negotiated contract. There are a couple of other lower number articles, but we definitely decided as a subcommittee that the teacher negotiated contracts in the amount of $337,537 for the 3% COLA. This year we just don't feel that we can afford it as a town. And so they are not recommending that that be passed. As far as the operating budget, I want to explain a little bit on how things came about. We first had an SAU 20 public hearing, and at the public hearing, a variety of people expressed concerns about the budgets and requested various things be done to lower the budget. I know during that meeting, the superintendent, Dave Backler, and Cassandra McCucci had literally offered to forego their raises in order to try to help with the situation. The school board, however, chose to just take the budget as presented. After that meeting, Dave Backler and Cassandra McCucci got together and they lowered the budget again. Even though the school board did not recommend it, they went on their own and trimmed off some of the budget. And that brought it down to a 0.17% increase for the operating budget, not including the raises, but a 0.17% increase over the prior year, which is extremely low. Most recently, there's been another change that we learned about. And so we're not ready yet. We're waiting for more information from the school district as to what the effects will be long-term for a change that they just made. And the change was to the SPED department. They have reorganized that in such a way that there were 2 full-time positions. One was responsible for all of the kiddos who are special education designated in district, and the second person was responsible for all the special needs kids out of district. And so there were 2 separate full-time positions. I think they were each about $87,000 ballpark figure for salary. plus the full benefits. They just received on February 11th a letter of resignation from one of those individuals. She will continue to be with the district until June 30th. And then they are looking to, instead of doing a full-time position to replace her, they're looking to do a half-time position, which will be a huge difference. The salary will be about the same in terms of the hourly rate, but it's only going to be a half-time position, which also means no health care benefit and no retirement benefit, and those add up huge. So we're trying to see, this went to print, obviously, I just got this a day or so ago. I think this went to print before that happened. And so they did not have a chance to include, I don't think, those reductions in these numbers. So I'm reaching out again to the SAU office, to Cassandra McCucci, and see what we can get in terms of numbers that will have a better effect on our tax rate and on what we have to pay in for the operating budget. So we don't have a recommendation yet. I will say, I met for 2.5 hours with David Backler, the superintendent, Cassandra McCucci, the finance director, and Joe Carpenter, who is on the finance department section of the school board. And we sat down for 2.5 hours, and they taught me how to read their budget, because it's very different from town budgets. 35 pages, different, long, very long, and a lot of different codes. So they helped me understand that. And while I was with them, I literally made the suggestion, why do we need 2 SPED directors? Could we do it with 1.5? And they listened. So the administration has listened in a way that's, I think, quite encouraging. So, unfortunately, I don't have a final recommendation for that, but we will still be working on it, and we'll, before the school district meeting, we will be able to have some more concrete facts.
I just wanted to mention, I think one of the biggest factors for me on that is they listened. You know, they heard and actually tried to do something with what they heard. So
I think that's all we can ask.
that's about it, as far as I'm concerned, that they actually listened and tried to do something instead of just ram it down your throats, which is very encouraging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we were very impressed with that. The town budget is broken into various sections, and you'll see that in the warrant articles when the books become available. They are available on the website, but there's no paper copies right now. But you'll see that there are different sections for Article 20 in terms of operating budget for the town in general. So we're just going to go over, we had subcommittees reviewing all of these. And so in terms of the executive office, that's the first one on the list. We had a total of 7 reductions that we felt were appropriate. And I'm just going to list them. And then I will tell you what the proposed budget was from the town, what the reductions were that we recommend, and what the final amended budget that we reached was. The first thing that we decided to recommend was to eliminate the selectmen elected officials pay line as a vote of no confidence. We feel very strongly that we had large numbers of people show up at select board meetings expressing concerns, and I'm not sure they made any real attempt to reduce. Like we said, the school did, in fact, twice they did, and we're not seeing that. So we felt that in a vote of no confidence, that line could be reduced. There's a competitive salary review amount, And that was put in a few years ago when people were trying to bring salaries up to a competitive level with other towns nearby. But that was a few years ago. They're still putting money in. They didn't use any last year, so we recommend removing it. Eliminate the budget committee minutes salary, taker salary. We have a minutes taker who is paid a stipend, but none of the budget committee members who work on the budgets and spend the time attending the exact same meetings get anything. They get no stipend. So we felt that was a little unfair. And so that was recommended to be eliminated. Reduce the select board's conference and travel budget. We have one potentially new member on the select board. If that doesn't happen, then we have 3 seasoned members, and we felt that that could be reduced as well. Eliminate Social Security and Medicare for the select board salaries, since we're eliminating the salaries. We reduce the town manager conference and travel budget. We believe that there are virtual options available, and use those whenever possible. Use the town car whenever possible, so that we're not paying individuals for mileage checks, and make use of external sources by email or phone for specific questions. We're a member of New Hampshire Municipal Association. We can reach out to the Secretary of State. We can reach out to the Department of Revenue Administration and get answers to questions if they come up that don't require people to go to a session in Concord and incur that kind of travel and incur potentially hotel rooms. So we had reduced that amount. And we also recommended to eliminate the town manager cell phone reimbursement. We have a variety pack of individuals whose private cell phone receives an annual reimbursement, and we just don't feel that's appropriate. We know too many people who use their phone as part of their job, and they do not get reimbursed. So that was another piece that we eliminated. So the proposed budget was $178,110. The reductions were $15,958 to leave an amended budget total of $162,152. The town clerk and elections budget. This was an interesting budget to kind of review, because the select board decided to remove a variety pack of duties that normally were done by the town clerk, namely motor vehicle registrations. And so that budget became a basic stipend of $5,000 if there's one election scheduled. If there's more elections, it's $1,000 per scheduled election. We decided the only thing that we could recommend was to reduce the town clerk conference and meetings and travels line, simply because there's reduced duties. You no longer need to learn how to do motor vehicle registration. That's going to be handled in a different department now. So if you're no longer doing motor vehicle registrations, there's no need for that training. And again, use virtual options whenever possible. Use the town car, make use of those external sources. And we felt that that could be done. Not a huge difference, but the original proposed budget was $18,591. Total reductions were $850, and the new amended budget is $17,741 that was recommended by that committee. Financial administration. There was a position line that was for a FOIA or 91A accounting part-time position. That was someone who would be designated to handle any of the Freedom of Information Act requests and to provide that sort of documentation. And we don't feel that that is necessary. Whoever's department is being FOIA'd, they can deal with it. So that was recommended to be eliminated. Once again, reduce the conferences and training and travel lines. We were going to eliminate the COLA line. And there is a part-time fiscal assistant that's half-time in the financial administration office and half-time with the highway. And we feel that we have done without that position in the past. We used to have a town manager, a fiscal director, financial director, and one person doing HR, payroll, and welfare. And I will say, I do not look forward to saying that a position is being recommended to not happen next year. I don't relish that thought. None of us did. It should have been a decision that was made by the select board or the budget committee. Neither of them did it. So we are standing up and making the tough calls. Doesn't make me happy. But this town is at a point where we are in trouble financially, and we can't do it anymore. So hard decisions have to be made, and I guess we're the ones that are doing it. And that would eliminate the full-time benefits as well. So the salary line and the benefits would be gone for that position in the proposed budget. This position actually was added when an individual who was full-time left the highway department as the recycling coordinator a few years ago. And it was proposed to the select board at the time to either eliminate the position completely or reduce it to half-time at the highway department. The position remained full-time. It went half-time in the highway, half-time in the financial department. And as I said, we formally did without it. And I think we need to start trimming, because Gorham right now is the third largest employer in the town of Gorham. We have more people than the mill. Just one quick thing, both on the executive line and the financial administration line. We would have recommended eliminating the 3% COLA for both the finance director and the town manager. However, they both have a signed contract with the Board of Selectmen that guarantees 3% COLA in 2025. So we really don't want to get snarled up in the legalities of that. They have a contract. Board of Selectmen signed it. Town manager signed the finance director's contract. So there you go. The tax collector's office. We're looking to slightly reduce the travel line for the same reason as everybody else. We're looking to eliminate the 3% COLA line. We're looking to reduce the part-time deputy tax collector salary line because the former deputy tax collector was assigned 14 hours to do the job. This one has been assigned 16. We feel that it's appropriate to be 14 since that's what it's been in the past. We would look to reduce the full-time tax collector salary line and benefits because we had people do research to other towns, and a lot of towns do not stay open 40 hours a week for their tax collectors, their town clerks, all of their other types of departments. They're not open 40 hours a week. We are. And I have to say, I was at a select board meeting and they made a really good point that we now have the option to pay a lot of these things online. You can pay your taxes online. You can pay your motor vehicle registrations online. All of those things online, and they were hoping to do more of that. When you do more of that, you can potentially lower the number of hours someone works in the office. So we're recommending a reduction for the tax collector's salary line by reducing the hours. And we feel that that is appropriate. If you have a deputy clerk who works 14 hours a week and a tax collector, regular tax collector who works 30, that's 44 hours a week between the two of them. And we feel that that's enough, especially if more and more people start using the online option for payment. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, please correct. The proposed budget for the tax collector was $119,988. The total reductions we're proposing is $27,991, and so the amended budget total would be $91,997. Thank you. He keeps me on my toes. For the assessing and revaluation line, once again, reduce the conference and travel line, eliminate the COLA line. There was a $10,000 assessing training. We felt that that was not necessary. One of the people had been there for a very long time. And we also are looking to eliminate the assessing assistant and the benefits. So we did not see the need for the new person to take training if we are recommending that that position be eliminated. Let me give some history on that. We had only one person in assessing for a very long time. And then several years ago, I believe it was agreed to have a half-time person or a part-time person. I think it was like 28 hours a week to assist in assessing and planning and so forth. And then that person retired or left. And all of a sudden we ended up with an enhanced position is what it was called, enhanced, which translates into a full-time position split among 3 departments that never existed before. So we had heard about it at the budget committee last year. Some of us expressed a lot of concern about it because when you add full-time benefits, it's expensive, very expensive. And the reality was, before a town meeting happened, the position had been hired. So we feel very strongly that position is not needed, and therefore we are recommending that it be reduced.
And also to that, the assessing department in Berlin has 1 person. 3 times the properties, 1 person. So this is, I feel, it's a luxury that is just costing us a lot of money when we're trying to reduce our budgets.
So the 2025 proposed budget from the select board and the budget committee was $367,088. Our total recommended deductions are $59,152 for a 2025 amended budget of $307,936. Legal expenses, $72,000. We decided that line should not be touched. You always want to be well covered legally in case things happen. There's a line called personnel benefits. It was a wellness program and tuition reimbursement funding. Not much of a line, it was only $1,050, but we felt many times it wasn't used. And honestly, we felt that the town employees are getting quite a few benefits as it is. And we did not need to include $1,050 for additional tuition reimbursement. Have no idea what that is or what they'd be getting reimbursed for. And a wellness program. Usually wellness programs are through your health insurance. So we eliminated that line completely. So that was $1,050 recommended by the budget committee and the select board, and we reduced it by that amount to a 0 balance recommended. Planning and zoning, once again, the full-time enhanced position was 30% in one department, I believe it was the assessing department, I believe 30% in
10, 50, and 40.
10, 50, and 40.
10% was in the assessment department.
I think they changed it.
Oh, well.
The latest budget, I believe, changed it. So I think it's 30% 30 and 40 among 3 different departments. So we were looking, once again, to eliminate the zoning conferences and meetings and travel, eliminate the planning conferences, meetings and travel, because nobody's going to be there to do that. Eliminate the COLA that was put in and the benefits in the salary line. So the proposed budget by the select board and budget committee was 36,665. Reductions were 31,357 for a balance to be left over of 5,308. And that's for things like books, planning books, zoning books, all of that sort of thing. We do have a consultant on top of everything else. She does a wonderful job. And so she can be the expert for us. She's a very good resource for the planning and zoning boards. So, general government building, which is this one here, the only thing we could find was to reduce the COLA or eliminate the COLA for the custodian. So there's a small change there. It was 89,532. It's dropped 697 to 88,835. The cemetery. Again, there's interesting history on some of these positions. We were both at a select board meeting, and we learned that it sounds like the town manager, and without, I don't think, involving the select board, because everybody looked pretty surprised, combined 2 part-time positions into a full-time position. So a part-time position in solid waste was combined with a part-time position in the cemetery, and lo and behold, presto, you now have a full-time position with full benefits. So we do not feel that's okay. We have to go in the opposite direction and reduce the number of full-time employees versus adding more. So we eliminated the COLA for the other permanent positions. We eliminated the part-time position line. We eliminated the benefits for the part-time position line. And this is half, because the other one has the other half of that position. And we reduced the equipment machinery line by a small amount. The proposed budget by the select board was 56,217. Thanks for coming, guys. Just saying goodbye. I guess the select board doesn't want to stay.
Well, they probably have their actual meeting they have to deal with.
So anyway, the proposed budget for the cemetery was 56,217. Total reductions were 26,533 for a total amended budget of 29,684. Our recommendation is that the part-time position could be replaced with another current full-time highway person if needed to help out during the full-time cemetery position worker in the summer, because they aren't tied up with plowing at that point. Or you could also have someone from municipal solid waste, if there's somebody there, but more likely the highway department. Insurance, we did not touch that line, but we had a very strong recommendation that the town seek out price quotes before our insurance premiums renew, because that's what I do. If I see something going up 13.5%, you better believe I'm on the phone and seeing if I can find a better price. So that's just the recommendation. But we did not cut the line. The line was 63,436, and it remains the same. We did not cut the advertising and regional association line of 3748. It's my understanding that the town is looking to do some kind of survey work in terms of questionnaires and such. And we think that's a great idea. And we know that the North Country Council may be a good source of that type of work. So we left that at 3748. So the next section under Article 20 is under safety. And that includes the police, the fire, EMS, and dispatch. Again, I don't relish saying this, but I think we've reached a point where we don't have a choice. The subcommittee working on the police department decided that it was time to go back to 6 officers. You can do 24/7 coverage with 6 officers. It involves a little bit of different scheduling techniques, but you can do it. We've done it before. And we know that it can be done again if it's necessary to do it. So we are recommending to reduce the budget by 1 full-time officer, because we currently have 7 full-time officers. We also have a 20-hour-a-week permanent part-time officer on top of the 7. So we are looking to eliminate the part-time position as well. That is a 20-hour guaranteed position that is year-round. So we don't feel we need 7.5 full-time officers. And we don't feel we can afford it. The police department currently has, I believe, it's $1,200 of cell phone reimbursement for that department. And the only person we felt as committees who should have a cell phone reimbursement is the emergency management director, who is the fire chief. He has a special cell phone and a special cell phone plan that's expensive because it allows him, as the point person, to cut through in an emergency all the huge cell phone traffic and go to the top. So he will always be able to get through with his cell phone and then coordinate, which is what the emergency person does. They coordinate all the other responses from that one phone. Police department has radios, fire department has radios, ambulance has radios that they can use. And there's 2 regular cell phones in the ambulances that are available as well when they are transporting someone in the ambulance. So we feel that all of the other cell phone reimbursements, the town manager, police, rec department, and so forth, that most people have their own cell phone. We don't feel the need to reimburse anymore for the cell phone that you're probably going to have right on your hip as it is anyway. We wanted to reduce the vehicle repair lines because this is the year when they are getting a new cruiser. It hasn't arrived yet, but it should be here in 2025. So we felt to drop it $1,000 was appropriate. There would be 1 uniform that would not be needed, all the benefits. And for these folks, especially, there's a huge benefit in terms of the retirement because they're allowed to retire early. It's a tough job. It's a physically tough job, and it's an emotionally tough job, and they are allowed to retire much earlier, so they pay more upfront to be able to do that. We would eliminate 1 state training for 1 officer. It's 30 hours of training, and they are required to attend, but it would be 6 attending versus 7. And the other thing we were looking to do was to eliminate these special details. We know that the officers and cruisers have gone up north to Pittsburgh to help out at the Northern Border Patrol. We've seen them on our way to Lancaster at Santa's Village doing special details. And we feel really strongly that those folks need to be in Gorham. We need them in Gorham. And we don't want to put on extra mileage to Pittsburgh, to Lancaster, to Jefferson on our cruisers. We're trying to keep them as long as we possibly can and putting more mileage on for special details, even though it pays back. In the long run, it can lead to more officer burnout because they're doing more hours. We need them in Gorham.
Mary, can I ask a question?
Sure, and Bob is a member of the GTA, so absolutely.
How many officers, permanent police officers,
Right now,
right now?
we have budgeted for 7 plus a half-time 20-hour-a-week position. That's what's in the budget.
You've got the papers. I haven't seen the book. Has it been published?
Right.
I'm curious to know, what does the police department have for overtime?
I might have that.
And the reason I asked the question is we should have a full complement in the department. They should not be, I think you're gonna come up with a pretty big number, but, that should not be there.
These are very
That's
small.
To be blunt.
I have just a little on that. I am definitely against planned overtime. And the PD is one of the departments that things come up. And I don't believe, and I just want to bring this up while she was coming with it. I don't think that an overtime budget for PD could be removed. I mean, things happen. You got half an hour left in your shift and all of a sudden you're involved with a call or an accident or something, then, you can't just leave and expect somebody else to come in and take over when you're in the middle of something. I don't think that planned overtime saying that, oh, you're gonna get 5 hours of overtime a week because I'm going to schedule it that way. I don't believe in that. But it's something that I don't think it'd be done totally away with.
You're not gonna do it totally away.
No, I just wanted to bring that up while she was coming up with the money.
Let me just go through some of the police lines that deal
What's
with.
the bottom line on overtime?
On overtime, they figure 5 hours a week at an average of $45.66.
That's not the question. I asked the gross number for overtime. I
Right.
don't care what it is per day.
Yeah, the amount is $11,872. And that counts for, like I was trying to say, if it's 5 hours a week, would come to $11, I wish, $11,872 per year. That also includes a permanent position salary line with the union contract of $484,936. The part-time position is $29,942. And like I said, that's a permanent part-time position. Then they've got additional leave coverage for $11,232, holiday coverage of $25,113, court witness pay $47.49. So it's hard to say just the overtime because they also include when somebody's working a holiday, that's a holiday pay rate.
I just failed to see why there's, every year, that's always a pretty big number. That strikes me.
I think he's thinking actual expenditures and you're talking budget.
Okay, I can, hold on
No,
a second.
I'm talking budget. What's our bottom line? And
For the whole
this
department or
town
just?
is not that big. Population is small. And for us to incur every year, I look at it, to me, that is such a big number.
Well,
I've been told before, what you were saying, Adam, there was a car accident, at the end of the guy's shift, you investigate, he's gonna write out his report. He's gotta come back to the station, write out his report, he's got 2 hours overtime. My thing is, tomorrow, when he comes in, he's got the report. When he comes in tomorrow on his shift, he can sit at his desk and write his final report. Why have we earned those 2 hours overtime? That's the point I'm trying to make.
I think the whole total budget for the police department recommendation is $907,671. And that does not include dispatch. Okay, that's separate from dispatch. So I can tell you that Bartlett Police Department had a budget in 2024 of less than $500,000. And they actually have a larger population. I think they're at about 3,400 people, where we're at about 2,600. So we saw a lot of opportunity to reduce, and so the proposed budget was $907,761. The total reductions that we were proposing is $133,565, And the new amended budget total would be 774,196, which puts us in a much better position, say, for example, with Bartlett, which is a very big tourist town, just like we are, and a bigger population, because we actually have, even at 6, we have one more officer than Bartlett does. They have budgeted for 5. So when we figured the amount, we used the entry-level salary for 2025 per the contract, which is $28.79 times 40 hours a week times 52. And as I said, 24/7 coverage can be done with 6 officers. We've done it before. Other towns have done it before.
Excuse me, which Bartlett does not do 24/7 coverage with 5.
No,
They do 20 hours a day
yep, with 5.
with 5.
So if they can do 20 hours a day with 5, we should easily be able to cover 6 with 24 hours a day.
The main thing is it takes scheduling to have the coverage, fit.
They call that management.
Well, and you're right, but the scheduling makes the difference of you choose when, I don't remember, what's the hours? For how many available hours in the whole week, we have that figured out.
Oh, I think it's like 168.
Sorry, math, quick on the fly, especially after the day I've had, not great.
So 24 hours a day times 7 is 168 hours. If you have 40 hours a week times 6 officers, that's 240 hours. Now you do the math. You can do 6 officers for 24/7 coverage.
And have leftover. Definitely, it's not
I'm
like,
just questioning the overtime, that's all I'm questioning.
yeah. And again, I'll say I'm one of the first ones to say planned overtime. No, that's a scheduling issue.
For emergency medical services, that's our ambulance folks. We were looking to eliminate the 3% COLA, and we really could not find additional, as a subcommittee, we could not find additional savings without cutting into the service. We originally had, I think, mostly on-call, except for the fire chief, who also double duties as the EMS director. We used to have 2 separate positions for those. We had an EMS director, we had a fire chief. When we had a retirement for the fire chief, they combined those 2 together. So huge savings again by combining the two together. But I think we used to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we used to have a lot of on-call people, but it's difficult to be on call when you're working another job and it's not a full-time job. It's the same with the fire department. They're on-call volunteers except for the chief. So some people work during the day. They can't just leave work to answer a fire call. So they determined, with the ambulance at least, they really wanted to have some full-time staff to be able to staff adequately, to be able to respond to the ambulance calls, because the only other ambulance option is up in Berlin, 15, 20 minutes. We've got them right here, okay?
Mary,
Yep.
on ambulances,
Mm-hmm.
what does it cost the surrounding communities to call the Gorham ambulance service?
I'm going to defer to him on that because he's much more familiar with what I am.
It used to be a very ridiculous number. It was very small. A number of years ago, it was brought up to, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but it came up to about $50,000 per Randolph, Shelburne, and the county. The math doesn't come out perfect because the county also pays. Yep.
My question is, if I live in the surrounding community and I
Right.
call the ambulance, what will I be charged for that service?
That I couldn't tell you. And I don't know if it's any different for them on that part than it is for in town. I don't do ambulance. I don't.
So if I'm in town, do I pay the same price?
I think it depends partly on the insurance that you have. So for example, if I'm having a heart attack and I call 911 and the ambulance comes and I'm from Shelburne, so they come down to Shelburne. Shelburne will pay this town a certain contract amount. I think right now it's 75,000.
I believe it's 75,000 for the year for the service. After that, it's individual billing, and I don't know. I don't think there's any difference because most of it's on insurance.
Right. So if I have this insurance, they might cover 80% and I do 20%. If I've got this insurance, it might look different. So I really don't know what the insurance piece is going to look like. I can tell you that the community as a whole is paying now a much more reasonable amount to have that option to have our ambulance come or fire.
I know as a Gorham resident, very recently, called the ambulance. It's anywhere from $800 to $1,000 to go to ABH.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason I asked the question about the surrounding communities.
Mm-hmm.
It should be waived because I'm, as a taxpayer, and I'm still charged $800 or $1,000, whatever it may be, for the use.
Based on the insurance that you've got.
Well, forget the insurance.
But that's how that portion
But
gets paid.
That's the money that's paid out. And if you're from the surrounding community, is it still $800 or $1,000? Or is it $1,800? Then the insurance will say.
Same, they're billed the same way as
Right, right. Depending on if you're on Medicare, Medicaid, Aetna, regular insurance through your work, it's all going to look different. You might have a 20% copay. You might have a 25% copay. You might have no copay, depending on what the service is. If you go into the hospital, there might not be a copay. So, but we're looking at what the town receives and pays for those services in general to have them here and available when you call to respond.
As far as the actual bill that goes out, I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never gotten a bill from the ambulance here and compared it to anybody else's. You would have to contact probably the fire chief.
The only
to
reason
say.
I asked the question is I want to make sure that Gorham is not a donor town. For the surrounding communities on the services, talk dispatch or anything else.
Right.
I just want to make sure that Gorham is not a donor town.
Well,
We're getting paid. We're getting paid.
And no complaint, Bob, I'm right with you. There's a lot of things that the surrounding towns take advantage of, and I'm not bad-mouthing, it's just the way it is, because we have a lot of services. I don't know the legalities on what the ambulance can charge, or if they can even charge different. Again, you'd have to ask, the fire chief, because he runs that, and he could tell you, I'm sure, in a second flat. I do know that now, the total that is on the contracts, I cannot tell you by the year, how it works, because they usually phase these contracts. But it's supposed to finish up approximately $75,000 just for us to say, we'll take your calls. It's different when you look up the amount of money for the county, because the county, we charge for fire service also. The other towns have their own fire departments, and it's mutual aid if we go there or they come here. But the county pays for us to stand by and say, okay, fire department will take care of plus they get charged by the call for the fire department also. That much that I do know. But as far as differentiations in pricing, I can't tell you.
You mentioned that Shelburne pays $75,000. How much is Randolph?
Same. It was done, the contract was looked at by number of calls and number of people in the towns. And as best guesses they could come up with, it figured out 10% of the people, 10% of the calls for basically the others. So that was the figure. And, you know, and I was in on the original contract as far as working with them on it. I was not in on this one. I just read the numbers. I'm going to assume it was kind of figured the same way. Plus dispatch was added in as a small, it was just wrapped in. It wasn't split out as a cost.
So the numbers for EMS, ambulance, we eliminated the 3% COLA only. So the proposed budget was $731,908. The reductions we were recommending from the subcommittee was $10,459, and the new amended budget total was $721,449. For the fire department, we were looking to eliminate the 3% COLA for the chief. And it was a tough call on this, but we agreed that since less than 40,000 had been used for the on-call salary line, and they were asking for 50 this year, we backed it off by 10 for a total deduction of 11,250. The original budget was 206,543, and so the amended budget would come to 195,293. So that, like I said, the year-to-date expenditure for 2024 was 37,842 for the salary line for the on-call workers. And so we felt that 40 would cover that. You never know. I mean, it's hard to determine. Nobody anticipated the Alpine fire a few weeks ago, okay? But hopefully it will cover it with the 40 versus the 50. Building inspection, we were looking to eliminate the land use clerk position. That's that additional one that was 30%, I believe. Yes, 30% of that enhanced position. And we looked at a variety of other communities and our own department history and felt that we really did not need more than one person doing those duties. In addition, we just hired a new residential assessing company. We had a company before called KRT. You may have met with them when they did your assessments and set the value of your home. And they are in Massachusetts and they pulled out of New Hampshire. So we were left with no assessing company at all. And so they were able to get a new assessing company. I believe it's the same one that Berlin has. And I personally talked to someone in the Berlin offices up there and they said they're very happy. So I think it's in a good direction that we have that. So we have the professional company now coming in as the new assessing company. We have our commercial and utility company that has been with us for a while, so we still have that. And like I said, we have a qualified consultant named Tara Bamford who works with the planning and zoning boards. She's very knowledgeable, she's very professional, and we have that available to us as well. So the town building inspector is Phil Cloutier, who's also the fire chief, and he works with all of the individuals who are looking to work with the planning and zoning boards to either start a new business, have a rental property, have an Airbnb property, and he goes and makes sure that everything is okay. And his salary is basically it's a stipend, and so that will remain. We'll still have a building inspector, we just won't have that additional person. So the proposed budget was $40,439, the reductions were $30,439, and so it remains an amended budget of $10,000. Emergency management is the emergency management director. That's who takes point person as the emergency coordinator when there's really bad stuff that happens in Gorham, like we had the flooding a couple of years ago. We did not change that line. It's 8,281, and we kept it the same. Dispatch. There's been a lot of information floating around about dispatch. And, yep,
Do that. GTA.
right.
Like, let's go with
Right.
that.
Yeah, so the proposed budget was $363,417. We're not looking for 2025 to do that, change anything for that particular department, because we have an RFP request as part of Article 14. And if that goes forward, we need to have money in dispatch to tide us through this year. Things may look different next year if we get RFP numbers that are lower than what we're currently paying. But we wanted to keep it the same this year, so nothing will happen this year. And I'll talk a little bit about Article 14 and what that is towards the end, but I want to get through the budget stuff first. So that's the same. Then they ask about highway and streets and bridges. So we had another subcommittee for that. And they felt, once again, we could eliminate the cell phone reimbursements. Everybody has a cell phone. I typically don't leave the house without my cell phone, and it's available. So he used to work, he had his cell phone if they needed to call him. He still gets calls, and he's retired, but he still gets calls on his cell phone. We're not reimbursed for that. We are looking, once again, that part-time office position. We have a very capable person who is the director now. We have a foreman who assists him, who is exceptionally capable. And we have a pretty large crew. And we felt that the part-time office position really was not necessary. Again, we had an opportunity when someone left. They chose not to eliminate the position at that time. Things are a little bit challenging right now, so we're looking to do that recommendation. And then they had recommended a 10% decrease on the balance after we already did those other 4 reductions. So the proposed budget was $1,045,671. All totaled, we were looking at a reduction of $151,471 for a final budget of $894,200. We have 10 people, I believe, full-time people on the highway department. And then we have, I believe, 3 more at least, 3 more on municipal solid waste. That's a large budget between the 2. And we just have to, we felt as a subcommittee that we need to tighten our belt. Street lighting, 22,000, we didn't change that. You want to talk a little bit about what that is?
Well, excuse me, we did a large project, changed everything over to LED a number of years ago. And basically, the way it was explained to me when I was on the board, it is basically pays for the streetlights. It's the electric bill for running them, and I don't know if there is any maintenance cost in there also, but basically it's what it costs to have the streetlights. And it's not something we do ourselves. So
And I think it's cheaper with the LEDs.
it's a lot cheaper.
By far.
That is a huge savings from the old street lighting budget. Huge.
Another line is gas. It was budgeted at 1,000 now. What you're seeing in the individual budgets is they are now charging the gas through the individual departments, because we are now getting our gasoline and diesel through the state at the pumps up off of Route 2. Much cheaper. So it's a much better choice than just having everybody go down to the pumps at DPW. So that was a huge savings as well. So we just, and the $1,000, Adam explained, it was probably for things like lawnmowers and so forth. So we kept that. Solid waste collection, we eliminated the COLA increase for them. And there was that part-time cemetery, part-time MSW. municipal solid waste. And so we felt that position was not needed in solid waste. We have had 3 people on the garbage truck. We do not need 3 people on the garbage truck. Every other garbage truck I've seen has either 2, a driver, and somebody to throw the bags on, or some of the really cool ones have the arm. So you have a driver, they pull up, they've got special dumpsters, and that's what they do. So you only have to have 1. We don't have that right now, but we do need 2, we don't need 3.
I just want to mention on this, and this one has come up many times, to do away with curbside pickup or other revisions thereof. It is one that seems to have a lot of pushback because a lot of people like their curbside pickup. I'm not going to argue with it. It's fine. You can't do anything with it until you find out what it costs. So if anybody wants to get involved with any of that, I believe the town manager, given a little time, could work up exactly what it costs, because right now, there's no exact. I mean, when you got to figure in cost of equipment, the replacing the packers and the recycling truck, which we just got a new one. Because I literally do not know what it cost us. And it could be the best deal in the world, leaving it the way it is. Or it could be cheaper to get rid of it and build a transfer station and everybody take their own. But it's a total unknown, because nobody that I could tell anywhere in this town ever put together a cost of what it's costing us. So, I mean, personally, I take my trash down. I mean, they pick up my trash, but all my recycling and everything else I take down. I'm not saying it should be gotten rid of or anything, but before anybody recommends it, you need to have pricing put together and then have people decide for what it costs us and what it's going to cost to go to something different, what is the best way to go. I just want to say that going forward. But anyway.
And that's basically why the GTA did not recommend, just slicing and dicing this department, because we don't know what it costs. And without that information, we can't really recommend making a huge change, because we don't know if it would be better or not. Maybe in the future an RFP for that, or doing a study of some sort that is done internally, not hire people to do it, but internally. We've got a town manager, we've got a director of public works, we've got a foreman, and all kinds of people. So we should be able to at least find out what it is costing us just for that. So the numbers, proposed budget was 324,921. Reductions were 53,336 down to 271,585 for that. $100 for the airport, we didn't touch that. Animal control, basically we have a contract with the North Conway Humane Society in the amount of $1,700, so that if somebody has a little puppy or dog or whatever is wandering around and we don't know who it is, we work with them. And so we didn't touch that line either. Welfare. The welfare budget was increased to $50,075 this year. We did not touch that. Unfortunately, it was estimated that 90% of the people who received welfare assistance in this town, from the town, were Gorham people. And so that really concerned us, that our own people are having to resort to going to the town for help. And 90% of the people who needed help were Gorham. So we did not touch that line. We hope it won't be as high, but we're not sure. So it could be a sign of the times. It could have just been a blip, but we agreed to go from 25 to 50.
I did check with Whitefield. Theirs exploded last year also.
It just seems like the number of homeless people keeps going up and up and up.
Well, and I don't know how much is homeless, and I don't know how much is just needed help this one time or that time.
And
I don't know.
so they-
I believe that the office downstairs has traditionally always done a really good job trying to keep it as low as possible, what gets given out. But when they show up, you can't just turn them away.
Right.
And that's by law, by state statute. We cannot just say, go to Berlin. We can't say, sorry, nice to know you, too bad. We have a responsibility to help folks. But we do not have to do all of it. They do a lot of referrals to other agencies that help. Tri-County CAP, Homeless Services, Social Security Disability, help them with, food banks, all kinds of different options available. Catholic Charities does help on a limited basis. So there's all kinds of options, but sometimes those people they've expended all of those options and they still can't get by. And so when that happens, the town, when they come, has a responsibility to help them out. And I just wanted to say, I did talk with our welfare person who does the work, and she wanted the people to know that, some rumors were going around, oh, it's just a bunch of druggies. She said absolutely no one who is receiving welfare from the town of Gorham fits that category. So I wanted to put that out because some of our
Stories
officials
get
have
around.
actually made the comment that we didn't want to hire them to work for us because we don't want to deal with druggies. Not true. This year, nobody was in that category who received welfare from the town of Gorham. So I want to put that out. They are just people who are hard down on their luck.
Mary, is there a limit how many times they can apply?
I don't think so.
You're
As
off
long
into
as they
rules, I don't
qualify,
know.
as long as they qualify, and they're constantly looking, do you still qualify? So yeah, you can have somebody 1 year, have a tough time, stuff happens, they come for help, and the next year they may still qualify for everything. They're doing what they need to do, they're doing a job search, they're doing this, they're doing that, but they haven't been able to recoup where they were before. So we still have a responsibility to either help them find services elsewhere, or if all else fails, provide them ourselves. Okay. Recreation, we're looking again, the cell phone reimbursements. It looks like there's 2 cell phones that are reimbursed. We felt that was not needed, reduce or eliminate the 3% COLA. And I want to talk a little bit about the senior program coordinator. We are not looking to eliminate the senior program coordinator. We are recommending that that position go back to part-time. I went back to 2011, and it looks like from 2011 until COVID hit, and you can't use COVID as a way to say how many hours because nobody was doing anything in COVID. They couldn't. So I took out 21 and 20 because that would have skewed the hours way down below what a part-time regular job used to be. So we're saying have it go back to what it was, which is a part-time position of, I believe they said, 29 hours a week. And just so I can make it clear, in 2011, it was 34 hours a week. Then in 2012, it was 26, 2013, it was 32, 2014, 29, 2015, 28, 2016 through 2019 was 29 hours. So prior to COVID, the average was 29 hours a week. And they were able to do wonderful things with the senior program and do wonderful trips and do wonderful activities, and they could still do that, but on a part-time basis. So we felt that it was appropriate to go back to a part-time position with part-time benefits, which would be no health insurance, because you need 30 hours a week to have health insurance and 35 for New Hampshire State retirement. But that's what it traditionally has been. The request was made back in 2022, I believe, or late 2021 was when it was pitched to go higher numbers. And the idea was that there would be payment from the revolving fund from the rec department to pay for part of that the town would pay for the part-time stuff, and eventually the position would start paying for itself. And unfortunately, there was no payment from the revolving fund in 2022. There was no payment from the revolving fund in 2023 for that newer full-time position, or 2024. And so we kind of said, 3 strikes, you're out. We need to go back to a part-time position. So we want the senior program to continue. I want to make that perfectly clear. They do great stuff for our seniors, but just on a part-time level. And again, I don't relish being the one to have to speak that recommendation, but we have to make some tough choices in this town. So the proposed budget was 171.52. The reductions come to 29,229, and the amended budget would be 141,823. The only thing we could find for the Parks Department was to eliminate the COLA, and we felt it was only $300, but we didn't understand the need for overtime. You do it during your regular time. So the proposed budget there was 53,867. We reduced it by 1,035 for 52,832. Patriotic purposes, which is basically police coverage for the 4th of July, we didn't cut anything, 3978. And that's basically to get enough, we have a lot of people in Gorham on July 4th to have enough police coverage. And it's not just our folks, they have state PD, they have Berlin PD, some other types of police presence. Conservation Commission, $250, we didn't change that. And then we have debt that we incurred. We had approved at a town meeting to do the road bond for Stony Brook. And so this year, we have no choice. We have to put the money into it to fund it. It's $172,105 for the principal. And so we kept that line where it is. The interest on that bond is $31,957 this year, and we kept that as it is because we took out the bond and we have to pay on it until it's paid up. And then they always put in a little bit of interest on what's called a tax anticipation note. If we're late in getting our tax rate out and established, it means that we're late sometimes collecting for property taxes. And so sometimes we have to take a loan, not often, I don't think.
In my experience, it's not very often, but I mean, it's also if people pay the taxes late, or a bill comes up, or bills come up that you can't wait until the next payment on taxes. If some things have to be covered, they have to get a loan. And if they do, this basically just pays the interest on that loan.
So the basics, if you look at everything I just went through, the total select board budget committee recommendation comes to $5,438,017. And the total GTA recommendation is $4,811,944. That is down $626,073. I just wanted to let folks know there's a couple of other things that come up. There's a capital reserve fund that's been mentioned in Article 30, and this was something that the Budget Committee actually voted to decrease by $46,500, and we believe that's appropriate. But the interesting thing is that when you look at the article in the town report that's online, it says the amount listed to be raised and appropriated is the Board of Selectmen's recommendation, not the Budget Committee's recommendation. The Budget Committee's recommendation is what needs to be on the warrant to raise and appropriate. So we would be looking to amend that $271,500 to the Budget Committee's recommendation of $225,000 for a reduction of 46.5. I have no idea why the Budget Committee's recommendation was not listed. But it needs to be corrected.
The budget committee's budget is what's supposed to be on the warrant. I'm going to assume this was just an oversight by whoever typed it up. And because by statute, what we're supposed to vote on is the budget committee's budget, or whatever amendments come up on the floor. But this got messed up, and I would assume that probably either somebody from the budget committee or from the select board will make an amendment before anything else is even said about it. By all rights, they should. But
And then the last item is Article 21. Gorham Public Library is run by the trustees for the library versus the select board. And so their budget goes in a separate warrant article because it is basically what they do is they do a transfer to a special revenue fund for the library, but it is from our tax dollars. Our tax dollars are what pay that special transfer, okay? I have been accused of hating libraries. Absolutely false. I practically grew up in the Bangor Public Library when I was hitting middle school. And I was there so often that nobody was allowed to go in the stacks if you were a patron. I was, because they knew me. And they knew I would be respectful and not mess things up, that I knew what I was doing. But we have to understand that this right here, I can do most every research I need to do right here. So where I used to spend hours in the library, I can do it from the comfort of my own home now. I'm not saying that libraries are not still important, because they are. We have a library that is a public library, and by state law, we must continue to support it. We can't just close it, and no one is looking to do that. However, the statute is completely silent in terms of what constitutes an appropriate amount for the library. The library this year proposed $171,415. That is only about $35,000 less than the fire department. That seemed very out of whack to the subcommittee. No other library in Coos County, except for ours, is open 40 hours a week. None. Gorham Library is open 40 hours a week, and we add up to 3 more hours usually in the summertime. Nobody does that. Berlin has 3 times the population, and Berlin is open 39 hours. Whitefield, I believe this year is proposing $100,000 for its library. Bartlett, with 3,400 people compared to our 2,644, is proposing, its last one proposed $50,000. We went through the budget, and I will go through what we found. We were looking to get rid of the COLA. Again, that was across the board, unless it was guaranteed by a contract for town manager, finance director, police, and dispatch. Those were all guaranteed. They get the COLA or the raises. But this was also going to be a COLA. They included a COLA, and we're eliminating that. This was really hard, but we decided that a full-time 40-hour-a-week librarian If they are open 30 hours a week, she could have 10 hours of that 40 to do administrative work when nobody is there. So there's no distractions, okay? But we did not feel an assistant librarian was needed at this point in time. When my grandson was young, I took him to the library all the time to introduce him to books and introduce him to the feel and the smell and the looks of everything over there. And a lot of times we were there by ourselves. Nobody was there. I keep hearing how many people use the library. I've been going the past few months on a regular basis. I'd go on different days. I'd go at different times. Sometimes I would be the only patron there. The most I have ever seen during my trips over the past few months has been 6 patrons. 6. The last time I was there, 2 people were reading in chairs. 1 person was on a laptop in the reading room, using their laptop. 2 people were in the lunchroom, the conference room, having lunch. And 1 person was in the stacks, plus me. That's it. But I think we had at least 2 staff people to handle the patrons that were there. So the recommendation that the subcommittee did was to leave 1 full-time librarian at 40 hours a week with full benefits plus the on-call workers. The on-call workers, it averages out, I think they could do 17 hours a week if they wanted. So if you have people who are out sick, you can do an on-call worker. You can have someone fill in for part of the vacation time. And at worst case, if you don't get volunteers and you don't have on-call people for a full vacation time, you don't open. You just don't open during that time period. There was a custodian position that started off as a grant, and the wonderful thing about grants is you get freebies, but eventually those grants tend to go away. And so that's what happened here. So the grant went away after 2 or 3 years, and they added that position to their payroll. And we believe that that is unnecessary. The water and sewer department and the fire and EMS departments do their own cleaning for their departments. And we don't see why the library can't do the same. They were asking for $3,500 for maintenance and repairs. The library has access to funds originally donated by a gentleman named David Murphy. I knew Mr. Murphy well. He was one of my neighbors before. And he left what's called the Murphy Fund. And as of December of 2024, the fund had a balance of $102,084. If you get 3.5% interest, which absolutely should have happened in 2024, that's the $3,500 for the maintenance and repairs that they're requesting. Use the Murphy Fund, please. That's why it's there. They proposed to purchase $16,150 worth of new books in 2025. They said $1,750 usually is about the average cost of each book. If they purchased 901 materials in 2024, they added 901 materials to the collection in 2024. And even if you raise the cost to $20 a book, at $16,150 means that you'd still get 807 new books in 2025, or 15 books a week. We have 2,644 people, folks. That's a lot of books, especially when they don't have what seems to be a lot of people in the library. There is a huge amount of people using ebooks, but that service only costs us less than $1,000. That's what people are doing. They want the ebooks. So I'm not one of those people. I like the book in my hand, But we also have a service that we're paying for called interlibrary loan. And that means if we don't have the book available, if somebody else in the interlibrary loan system does, they let us borrow it for free. That's how I've gotten a few of my books. And you wait maybe anywhere from a week to maybe 2.5, 3 if the weather's bad and the van can't get here. But you get your book.
It's probably where all those new books are going.
So we,
Stay there. There's no room.
again, we recommended that to reduce the hardcover book, not by a lot, by $1,925. And you'll still be able to get 13 books a week, like literally a week. So it's not a huge chunk, okay? So the proposed budget was 171,415. The reductions were 51,415 down to 120,000, which is still more than Whitefield. Definitely more than twice what Bartlett did. And it just involves doing things differently. Instead of being open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week, do it differently. It's no different than what we're asking other departments to do. Think outside the box and do things differently so we aren't paying as much as we are. And again, part of me just hates to be the bearer of bad news, but the reality is it's just something that has to be done. So at this point, the only other thing that I have is that the GTA has not issued the petition warrant article. That was me, myself, and I who did that. It was incorrectly reported by the town on their Facebook pages that the Gorham Taxpayers Association had been the one to submit the petition. Incorrect. That was done by a private individual. And the GTA, I think, is in favor of the article, which is now Article 14. And I will take a little bit of time. Do you want to discuss a little bit about dispatch while we're wrapping up?
Well, I came from a town, as almost everybody came from, unless you came from Berlin or Gorham or Colebrook, that has a regional dispatch system. There has been so many people commenting misinformation about the dispatch system. Okay? One of them was, you're going to have reduced time on response. Not reduced time, I'm sorry, extended time on response. You're going to have to look up the phone number for the regional dispatch system if you want to call. Let me do those two right off the start. 911 is a state of New Hampshire run system. There are 2 911 dispatch systems, bases, whatever, in the state. You call 911 from anywhere in this state, you are going to get either Laconia or Concord. They have 2 of them. I don't care if we have a dispatch here in Gorham. They do not pick up a 911 phone call in this dispatch. They do not. 911 is handled, the first questions and all the information is taken by somebody in Laconia or Concord. Okay? Then it is shipped to whichever dispatch handles your area. So there's no extended time there at all. It does not matter. And that includes Colebrook, even if you want. Doesn't matter, it's the same thing. The phone numbers that are called are the same phone numbers that they've always been. It just rings in a different dispatch. It is set up by an agreement between the organizations as to how many rings it does before it goes to the regional dispatch. So if, let's just say, the PD says they want it to go after 3 rings, to go to dispatch because they want a chance to answer it first, then that's what it'll be. If they don't want to answer that line at all, it can go to dispatch, and then dispatch will get in touch with whichever department, fire department also. Okay? So no change there at all. If you call dispatch right now, you're gonna get a dispatcher. If you call in that number, you wanna talk to an officer, they'll get a hold of an officer on the radio or whatever and handle it and have them call you back. Or meet them or whatever. No difference. Same thing. There's no difference in radio lag time. If there is, it's less than a second. Doesn't matter. We are going to have to change all of our radios and all of our repeaters to make it so we can deal with a new dispatch. No. They hook up to our repeaters, our radio frequencies. Okay? So there's no change there. I can say this because I grew up on regional dispatch. Originally, it was all handled free of charge to all towns in co-ops, even a couple that weren't in co-ops because of mutual aid system, but it doesn't matter, by the state DOT dispatch in Lancaster. Is a free service. Gorham never took advantage of it. Why? I don't know. When I was on the select board, I brought it up. They weren't interested in talking about it. But anyway, after COVID, things got hard to be able to get people to work 24 hours a day at state dispatch. So they did away with it because it was the only one left in the state that was doing 24/7. Except during winter months, they're not even doing that now. So, most all of the towns over the hill went to Grafton Dispatch. They are now handling the police, fire, ambulance for all those towns that used to go to Lancaster Dispatch. Okay? They are being charged. Whitefield, I spoke to just last week. Their bill this year for police, fire, and ambulance, $50,000 for all 3 services. $50,000. Are we going to be more than that? I'm sure we are, because we have to include Shelburne and Randolph, okay, and the county, which means basically Route 16 up until the Jackson Town line, which is just after Dead Man's Curve. Well, there's not a lot of calls in the county more than what, think about it, nobody lives there. There's accidents on the roads, accidents at the ski area, and you know, fire tones at the, you know, from the motel and whatnot on the auto road, and I mean, that's never gonna change. But it's not that many calls when you add those others in, and they are still paying us for that already in the emergency services contracts that they are paying us for. It can, if it does go this way, it can be looked at on the next contract whether to keep it that way or not, if we do get a regional dispatch. Bethlehem, when they decided a number of years ago, and it was done on a town vote, to go to regional dispatch, you would have thought the world was coming to an end. I know people there because of the same thing, a lot of misinformation. Oh, we're gonna have to change everything. Oh, nobody's gonna ever get called out. And, you know, I guess they're gonna send the pages and stuff by carrier pigeon. I mean, it was down to the ridiculousness of saying, oh, what happens if somebody's having a heart attack and pulls up here? Well, our dispatchers can help. Well, when did that happen? Never. But that was one of the comments. So there is a lot of angst about any change. I get it. There is. I'm old, I don't want to change. It's a cost-saving measure. That's all it is. We can't get information the way things are because of this. It comes down to, no, we don't want to change. We've had it this way forever. This is the way we want it. This, Article 14, if you read it through, it specifies if it's not going to save us at least $75,000 a year, and I believe it's going to be much more than that. I really do. I'm thinking we're looking at least $150,000 a year savings. Okay? And that is going on the police chief's text thing with information given to Grafton County that he says is $209,000. I think that's because it's all guesswork right now. Grafton County, Berlin, PD, their dispatch, I mean, they can bid on it if they want. Carroll County can if they want. It's open. However, until they have actual stuff in writing that tells them exactly what we do and what we're looking for service, we're never going to know what that price is. We're not. The way you ask the question is going to direct what you get for an answer. And I realize if I'm going to do it, I would really want to have them figure high. I would. Don't promise me you're going to do it for 70,000 and then turn around and say, oh no, it's going to be 200. So I'd rather figure on the high side. I would much rather hear it that way. And after the first year, if this happens, then they can adjust because they will have the actual numbers through their own system. How many calls come in? When I spoke to Grafton County Dispatch, the fellow that's in charge of it there, his first name is Thayer, okay? He gave me some very good information, which told me basically the same thing that other towns I spoke to said. The primary derive on what it costs per year is number of calls. That's it. It doesn't matter how big your town is. It doesn't matter, how much area you cover. What matters is how many calls are coming down the line. Because they don't care if there's no call. That doesn't, that's not a factor. I don't want to beat this to death, but I have heard so much misinformation about this stuff in the paper and online. This warrant article asked for a request for a proposal, which means we give you the information, you tell us what it's going to cost.
That's all it is.
That's it. And I asked, when we put this out, that in the $75,000 or less does not include the one-time setup cost. The last that the chief said at the last meeting we had here, I'm not going to get exact on it because, again, he did it on an email or a phone call and got an email back, was the way I understood him to put it, if I'm wrong on that. But I did see the email he got back. Okay? I haven't even really read it yet, but he said the $209,000 and it was $100,000 to set it up. Okay? One time. Again, I don't know how much information he gave them. Hopefully that'll figure out to be true, because if it is, that's $309,000 the first year, $200,009 after. We're paying $363. So if that's the case, and I'm just going to roughly off the top of my head, you're looking at $150,000 savings.
To pay that one-time charge.
And, yeah, it'll pay the one-time charge and still be less for that 1 year. I mean, yes, it's gonna require a little bit of change. But the service, we can't have them out, we have to have the dispatch in the town hall. They have to be here to watch the town hall all night. Why? I mean, every other town that I know of locks the doors and go home. And if they have something going on, it's up to whoever's putting something on to provide for security if you think it's bad enough that you have to have police on duty right here while you're doing it. I don't have a police officer here tonight watching what we're doing, to be ready when somebody tries to tar and feather us. But there's the thing of dispatchers watching over a prisoner in the cell if they have a prisoner in the cell. Because you can't leave them here alone. If somebody's in a cell, you can't lock the door and leave them. If there's a fire, they have a medical emergency, somebody's got to be here. I agree. Other towns, the common thing, the police officer that's on duty stays here until that person is handled, sent off to county, released on their own, whatever. Or what they do is, if there's another call that comes in, they call the town that they have mutual aid with for the police department, like Berlin. Can you handle this for me? Or they will call in somebody for that 5 hours of overtime in the budget to sit there while that call is handled, or have them handle the call. It doesn't happen every day.
I'm just gonna point out that the police department budget has an OT line that includes overtime for arrests. So they've already got it in there that's what they would do. And when we talked with a former police officer from a different area of New Hampshire about the practice that supposedly Gorham Police Department does of having dispatchers monitor prisoners, he said that's a really bad idea. If the person starts smashing their face or cracking their head against the wall or the bars and there's no officer there, what's a dispatcher gonna do?
Right.
Very bad idea. If that's what we're doing, very bad idea. How do you spell lawsuit if that person gets severely injured and nobody was there to help?
How often is there a prisoner?
Well, that was gonna be my next thing. I don't know. I have no idea. It could happen many times a year. I don't know. But again, it's all the what ifs. And I guess my what if is, I'm not gonna say it that way, I'm sorry. If all these other towns can figure out a way to do it without it being a huge imposition on what they do, we should be able to. We're not stupid. We've got smart people working in this town. All it takes is a little change and stop with the fear mongering that the whole world is gonna fall apart if we don't have dispatch in this town. So anyway, that was why she said she did it. We did it. I'm gonna take some credit for a little of the writing myself. But it's a thing that's,
And what you're saying is, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
no, it's not broke, but I wanna fix it and make it more affordable. That's what I wanna
It'll
do.
cost you more out of the gate, is what you're saying.
It might not.
It may not.
It may not. I mean, from what the chief said at that last meeting that was here. Yes, it was. The budget meeting, public meeting. Yes, thank you. The police chief said $209,000
For the base.
for the base, the service, the regular yearly service. He said 209. We can't argue this until we get the RFP back. You can't. And I'm not gonna argue it because I don't know. And he said 100,000 to hook up, which means updates to equipment. They have to do a different programming for the PD, for the report system, I guess. Again, Again, I don't know all the ins and outs on that stuff. That's what the RFP is for. So if that's the case, the first year would cost us 309, which I'm just gonna say is, you're talking 50,000 less the first year.
Would they retain the repeater on Pine Mountain?
Yeah, nothing changes with our repeater system. We're having updates on repeater systems this year, which is on a grant, and believe me, you'll have to talk to the fire chief, he's the one that's running it. And it's so much from this town, that town, but the county's paying a bunch. We're paying some of it, but it's a grant that covers most of it to add repeaters in to get rid of our dead spots. That's gonna happen with or without the dispatch issue, because we have a lot of areas that are dead. I mean, found out just this winter, a fellow had a shed burn right in town. I tried to call dispatch with my portable radio and I could not get them. Not their fault. Poor coverage. And this repeater system is supposed to fix those problems. So that is not a dispatch issue, that is a radio issue. And that stuff is gonna be fixed with or without this. Doesn't matter. And so they tie into our repeater system, whatever we have. All these other towns that went from Lancaster dispatch, Lancaster Highway dispatch, they changed over to Grafton County. They didn't have to change their stuff. They tied into their nearest repeater that they had. And I don't know if they had to change their programming for their reports on the PD and all that. I don't know, didn't get into it. That's what the RFP is for. What do we need? What's it going to cost us? Now, if I'm wrong, if we're wrong, and got the numbers wrong, the chief would have gotten his numbers wrong, and it's gonna cost us $300,000 a year to do it, well, then no, we don't do it. Okay, and that's spelled out in this warrant article. So if we're wrong,
Did you sign a contract with Shelburne and Randolph, I guess?
yes,
How long is that contract for?
I think it's 5.
5 years?
Pretty sure it's 5 years, yeah.
So we're responsible to get them the service for at least 5 years.
I think we've
Well,
gone through
It's
one year, and so there'd be 4 more years.
probably 4 more years. But I'm looking at it this way, and this is for everybody else to decide. They're paying us for dispatch, okay, as a very small portion of that. I don't remember what it was before they paid for dispatch per year. It wasn't much at all. Because they don't have that many calls. That's why they didn't charge them much.
Oh, okay.
They don't have PDs. None of these other towns have a police department. They have no ambulances. They have fire, that's it. Okay, so there's no added extra dispatch for that. So you figure these things in, there's not many calls. So that dispatch charge that they were getting, they're still getting, but it's just wrapped up as part of you sign this contract, we cover the service plus dispatch. So that's still gonna be in there. Okay, but like I said, if it's proves out to not be as great an idea as we thought once we see the RFP, it can go away. But the town will not look at it on their own.
And this repeater system, Chief
Yeah, repeater system.
said, he mentioned 600 square miles. And I kind of.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
Because I was thinking the town of Gorham
yeah,
doesn't.
we could do, nothing was mentioned about square miles when I talked to dispatch, Grafton County.
They
So-
go by the number of calls, not by the service
It's not the
area.
area, but I
Right.
think it's-
And I'm sorry, you were
How many communities does the city department cover?
Gorham.
Police departments will.
I believe he said he covered 10 communities.
No. He
Not
was-
police.
I believe you'll find he was referring to dispatch, covers 10 communities, which is not really true. I'm not gonna cut, and it's not a lie. It is just, the county has unincorporated areas okay? Those are not communities. Nobody lives there. Okay? That's the main thing. The fire and police are contracted to take care of those areas.
Not police. Not police, fire and EMS.
I'm sorry, fire and EMS is what I meant to say. Sorry. Police does not take care of the counties. Police does not do Shelburne and Randolph.
That's state police.
They use state police. Their choice. But anyway, it's not trying to belabor that part of it, but so fire and EMS covers the unincorporated areas. And I think he said there was seven of those, okay? And then ambulance covers Shelburne and Randolph and Gorham. Fire covers Gorham and the county. So it's communities isn't the right word, okay? The dispatching system really covers 3 communities. And those uninhabited areas. But we still get calls for fire and ambulance there because of accidents, basically, and a few fire alarms in those businesses that are there. So, anyway, if anybody has any questions on it, I'll be glad to answer what I can. Yes? Go ahead.
I just have 2 questions.
Sure.
What is the total amount that you're proposing for all of the budgets to be cut?
Okay.
700,000?
Oh,
I just went through that.
yeah, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. Well, and remember,
I just want to be sure that is a question.
yes, but just one other thing. Remember, we didn't get off into the warrant articles except for the library.
Right.
Now,
But even close.
I get you.
700,000, 800,000, $1 million?
I got you.
626.73, so $626,073, plus the 51 and change for the library.
So that's
So,
700.
yeah.
The thing is,
Whatever the dispatch does.
Well, that won't be
dispatch,
this
we're not looking at changing dispatch this year.
Okay.
Right, this year, keep it the same. So we're looking at upward almost 700. And then we have the warrant article that needs to be tweaked because they put, no, this is a different one. This was
The
a
capital
capital reserve fund that the budget committee recommended, but their number didn't get put on. So that's another 46, I think it is, for that.
Okay, all right, so possibly total 750.
Right, and that's just the town. The school, we're still waiting for information for that. We're not
That might be
looking,
another 500.
I don't know.
All right,
If the article for the school, number 7, I think it is, for the raises, the 3% raise, if that doesn't pass, that's almost $338,000.
well, a lot of people.
I have one more.
Oh. No.
So, having said all of that, you've done all this work, it's really great. What is the strategy for town meeting?
We will be doing amended budgets for whatever warrant articles.
Each and every one of them.
Well, we have, for the first one, for Article 20, that is the huge part that covers most all of the departments for the town. And so what we would be doing, because the select board didn't change the budget and the budget committee didn't change that budget, we would be proposing an amended article and we would be proposing an motion to have that be done by ballot vote only.
So, ballot, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And the same would be done,
Every
yep,
reduction would have an amendment at town meeting.
correct.
No petition to sign, none of all of that, that we're far beyond that.
We're
Yep.
way beyond that.
The only thing left is to amend.
I think
Absolutely.
one of
And-
the biggest things trying to remember here is we're not trying to defund the town. I've already heard that comment. Before anybody knew what we were talking about cutting out. We're looking for reductions in. We're not trying to defund the town.
No.
We're trying to do reductions that will help a little on the taxes because we just went up 374, okay?
We're just trying to prevent another.
Well,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
the thing is, I think that's where most people started paying attention to what's going on.
Right.
Well, the 374, there's been, okay, the equalization rate is the cause. No,
Right,
it's
yeah,
not.
that's easy
Right.
over and above.
Right, so what I'm trying to get at is, some of the things that caused this is, last year, we had, actually just before December, it was like in the very late of 23, okay? We had 6 officers, they changed it to 7. We had 1 person with a part-time in the assessing office, they changed it to 2 people, even though the other one is broken up between assessing, building, whatever. It's another person, so we have 2 people in the assessing office now.
Right,
And
which I won't comment.
what's that? No, no, I'm not getting into that. I'm just talking new positions,
Yeah,
okay? And then they combined 2 positions to make another full-time position between cemetery and DPW.
right, I understand.
These are all new things. New. The full-time in the recreation department, I was on the board when that was put in, going from part-time to full-time. And the deal was that it was put in for the full-time with no benefits for the first year. And if it didn't pay for itself because of running more programs, then it was either going to be paid for out of the revolving fund or go back to part-time. The select board asked the question whether it paid for itself that next year. I was no longer on the board. And no, it did not. The response from the select board was, well, we'll let the budget committee handle it. Well, the budget committee wasn't in on that deal. And the select board has not held it responsible from that position going to full-time and incurring all the cost of it to the taxpayer. They have not. So it's been given 3 years and it still hasn't paid for itself. So that's the reason for picking on, and I'm not saying picking on, but picking those positions. They're either new or were added and didn't work out the way they were supposed to.
Well, maybe you should look at more positions as well.
The thing is, I'm afraid of going to too much of a shock all at once. The town has to learn how to handle with some reduction. And a manageable amount, so it's not like culture shock. So I believe this is a very manageable amount of just tightening up a little bit and then see what next year brings.
My question is, how much per pupil is Gorham paying for those fees? And how does that relate to the surrounding towns?
That's a really good question. And we looked at the 2024 amounts. We've got the whole sheet when we had the committee looking at that. And I believe the price was about $814 more per pupil than the state average in 2024. And when you have over 300 students, you start crunching the numbers and it's like ka-ching, ka-ching. So once again, we're looking to hear back from the SAU staff as to what exactly the amount of the new change in the SPED department administration is going to provide for savings. I've got an email into Cassandra and I'm hoping to hear back from her this week. That will give us an idea of where to go on the overall budget, because I think this was printed before they had that resignation and before they made the decision to not go with 2 full-time speds again, but to back it off. And I give them credit for doing that. There's been a lot of give and take between the GTA reps and the SAU 20 administration. School boards, not so much. They just kind of did the blanket approval. But in terms of the administration, they were the ones. Initially, it was Dave Backler and Cassandra Bacucci, and then they brought in Tina Bennett to start really talking about what can we do differently. So I want to applaud that because they're trying at this point, and we just need additional numbers to let us know what's going on. And in terms of the COLA, this is across the board. This is school, this is town, and I confirmed when we had the public hearing that included water and sewer, they said they originally were going to mirror the town and do 3% COLAs for their staff. And I asked them, if the town votes down the 3% for town, what are you guys gonna do? And they said, we'll go with whatever happens with the town. So those are not raised by tax dollars. Their fees pay for everything in water and sewer. So if you're on water, you pay for your water. If you're on sewer, you pay for your sewer. If you're on one or the other, you pay just for one. So that's no tax dollars for those. And they are going to go up. There's no question because of the mandates that they're under from the federal and state government. So, I'm sorry.
I just want to make it, I'm the head of the teachers union at the school, and I just want to make a little correction on the per pupil costs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For Gorham, it's 18,000, which is tiny, for Gorham, it's $18,293 per pupil, and the state average is actually $21,545.
What year is that?
Well, this is this year, the year, it's 23, 24, because they don't have 24.
Right, they haven't got the newest one out yet.
But I'm sure that it will change that dramatically for the next year.
Okay. Where was that posted?
The per pupil cost was from the school.
From the school? Okay, I'll have to, would you mind giving me
This was
the,
the handout they gave us at the school budget meeting.
okay, all right.
Well, and I think one of the bigger factors is I don't know if it's in there, okay, I know what they gave us for figures. There's an issue when you come down to figure out for Gorham, and I don't understand it, and I don't even claim to. Gorham's price that we are charged per student is different than Randolph's and is different than Shelburne's. But when you add them all together and go price per student, that may be one of the figures.
Randolph pays like $30,000.
Well, and right, so because it's
But
by
it
number of
balances
students.
out.
Right, but this is a Gorham tax.
Right,
Right.
right,
Right.
right.
So I don't even pretend to know what that formula is to figure all that out.
Do you know how much it is then you have to pay for all people, not just one?
Should have been your classes.
Wicked tiny print.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'd have to average out the numbers.
We just used the figure that they gave us as far as
Yeah,
that's
and my
general.
guess is that what they were giving you was the per pupil overall.
Right.
Right,
Right.
That's
right.
how I want to make
And that's
Right.
fine.
Gorham is actually paying
Mm-hmm.
less than.
Yeah.
Right, and this, what we had was from the State Department of Education, and so I'm sure that it just looked at the total. But the thing about this is because it's the co-op, yes, they will split it out, but the average per pupil cost overall was about $800 more per pupil.
Right,
When you look at all of them.
Randolph is paying $30,000.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, and Shelburne was like 20-something.
Did we get, the testing numbers from?
I did not yet, that I have not received. Are you with the teachers union?
I'm the president of the teachers union.
Do you have any idea where we could get testing scores for Gorham, Randolph, Shelburne?
The
K through
interim
12?
state testing just happened, so we're just
Okay.
comparing scores now.
You're just getting
The
them
middle
in?
school anyway, I don't think the high school did the interim testing because it's not required by the state.
Okay,
So,
okay. And elementary, do you know anything about the elementary level? Okay.
I'm sure principals.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. So we'll try and get that now that it's coming out. And that may be why I didn't get it yet, because maybe it wasn't out yet.
Last year's scores, which would be the most recent state.
Okay, okay.
You know, when you look at actual cost for students, a big factor is how much we get from the state, from SWEP, and for adequacy. Or are we actually looking at the cost to taxpayers using the tax rate? The bottom line is, right in their book currently, without this change, our tax rate is going up $1.84 per thousand.
Yep. That's if everything
But
passes.
when you look at cost per student, are you looking at actual cost to taxpayers or cost per student with the money we get from the state?
Well,
Online, when you go online and that 18,000 that she was talking about per student, that was on the handouts that they gave us at the last meeting. And that included what we got from the state for SWEP and adequacy. It wasn't the actual cost to the taxpayer. But $1.84 per thousand is substantial.
It is, and I think a good portion of that, you gotta keep in mind, the operating budget was only up 0.17, 0.17. Okay, that's gonna be a portion of that 184. I think a lot of that was the 3% COLA raises.
Oh, part of it is the raise, yeah.
So of the
So if that
$1.84
gets,
tax rate impact,
yeah.
the 3% COLA is a huge portion of that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Is this an every year thing? I mean, with the raises, I mean, most companies don't give out those every year.
For the town, I can't speak for the school. I had asked them to send me the listing of what the COLA raises were over the past several years. I don't have that yet. But I can tell you from the town portion, the only time a COLA within recent memory was in 2018, there was no COLA. Every other time there has been at least something for a COLA.
It sounds like the town, every year you get.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I think the town has been very generous with the COLAs over the years, you know, generally. I know if you go way back, oh, brother, I don't remember, you know, there was a year or two in there where they didn't, when the economy was really bad,
2018, there was no
you know, but I mean, and I'm going back, you know. But for the most part, I think we treat our employees very well. And as we should.
Everybody wants you to the town.
And I think if we want dedicated employees, we should treat them well. But it just comes down to the point where a little too much all at once. So,
I know big business, maybe you're a big corporation, the profits will dictate whether people get.
right.
We're just a town that is trying to pay our bills.
There's no profit margin in town, or schools.
In 6 years, we never even saw a price increase, not 1 cent in 6 years.
I think just one other thing I wanted to mention real quick. It appears like this year, all of a sudden, federal government's cutting back. We get governor is cutting back for the state. The school is actually cutting back because they heard. Okay. The only one's not cutting back is the town. Okay. I didn't see a reduction one from the select board at all. And that told me that they weren't hearing us. And we could have worked together very well, I think, to try and keep reasonable reductions. But we got nothing.
Well, and I think you noticed that the select board members left the meeting early. So I think that speaks volumes.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say, it's like 10 after 8, Bob, and I know people have been really patient, but we'll take one last question.
The building capital reserve fund for the school. I see they got $75,000 in there. My question is, what do they have within 75? What's the total amount? 800,000?
Oh, what's currently in it?
What's currently in it?
Is
So
that
the
the
rest
new
of the
one?
75.
This is the new one, yeah.
And what's in there prior to the 75? But what's gonna be the total?
If that's the one I think it is, that's the one for the grounds.
Nope, that's
sorry,
this one
never mind.
here, the athletic
Oh,
field
go ahead.
capital reserve fund is 25,000. It does not list in the warrant article what the total is that they already
should show
have.
that.
It would be nice to have.
They should
It would
show
be
that,
nice
because
to have
that's
it,
a
I'll
big-
try and get it.
I know that's a big amount right now, so my question would be,
I think we could go back to the back of the book and possibly see,
It's,
It could well be,
yeah.
buried in here someplace,
10
but
o'clock, next meeting, thank you.
thank you very much for attending.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.